Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
Just as Republican attorneys general made a practice of suing President Obama and blocking his administration in the courts, so now are Democratic AGs using their power in the states to fight Trump administration policies wherever they can, on the environment, on immigration, you name it. And some of these state AGs are more high profile than others. By the end of last year, for example, the Democratic AG in the state of New York had taken some form of action against President Trump and the Trump administration at least 100 times. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has taken on the Trump administration over all sorts of policy matters, the Muslim ban, reproductive rights. He brought that potent and ultimately successful fraud lawsuit against Trump for Trump University. The New York AG is also highly visible in national politics because his state-level jurisdiction includes key figures in the Russia investigation and some related legal matters. Eric Schneiderman's office has reportedly teamed up with the special counsel on the investigation into Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort, who did business in New York. Trump's longtime personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, his home and office and hotel room were all searched last month by prosecutors after a referral from the special counsel. Michael Cohen lives and works in New York State. With so much talk in Washington that President Trump will at some point fire his way through the Justice Department to stop the Mueller investigation, New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has been seen as one way to potentially keep the Russia probe going if the president fired everybody involved on the federal level or if he issued pardons to people for federal crimes. Trump Tower and close associates of Trump have been based here in New York, and so the idea is that a New York AG like Schneiderman could bring state charges separate and apart from whatever happens at the federal level. Just a couple of weeks ago, Attorney General Eric Schneiderman started laying the groundwork to change New York state law for just that eventuality. He started work on changing state so he could still bring state charges even after a presidential pardon cleared somebody from federal charges. So that's the context for what I'm about to tell you and the reason why Eric Schneiderman is a much higher profile state attorney general than almost anybody else. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the New Yorker magazine tonight reports on the direct accounts of 4 women who accused New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman of physical abuse in the past several years, going back to 2013. 2 of these women have not given their names. 2 women have gone on the record, named, identifiable. Quoting the New Yorker, quote, they accuse Schneiderman of having subjected them to non-consensual physical violence. They allege that he repeatedly hit them, often after drinking, frequently in bed, and never with their consent. The women categorized the abuse he inflicted on them as assault. They did not report their allegations to the police at the time, but both say they eventually sought medical attention after having been slapped hard across the ear and face and also choked. One of the women says that Schneiderman warned her he could have her followed and her phones tapped. Both say that he threatened to kill them if they broke up with him. So what's described here in this new piece from The New Yorker is harrowing. These women are alleging very similar acts of violence and degradation inflicted on them repeatedly without consent by Eric Schneiderman. In response to these allegations, Mr. Schneiderman has given this statement to The New Yorker. He says, quote, "In the privacy of intimate relationships, I have engaged in role-playing and other consensual sexual activity. I have not assaulted anyone. I have never engaged in non-consensual sex, which is a line I would not cross." So that's the denial from the New York State AG. On the other side, these women apparently told friends about the alleged abuse while it was still going on. And those potential corroborating witnesses are vouching for these women now. They profile figures including the novelist Salman Rushdie. Even so, one of the women describes speaking out now as, quote, torturous. Quote, "I know it's going to be my word against his because I don't have photos of bruises and I don't have a police report." She continues, "What do you do if your abuser is the top law enforcement official in the state?" Not long after the New Yorker published this story tonight, New York's governor, Andrew Cuomo, called for Attorney General Eric Schneiderman's resignation. The governor saying, quote, "My personal opinion is that given the damning pattern of facts and corroboration laid out in the article, I do not believe it's possible for Eric Schneiderman to continue to serve as Attorney General, and for the good of the office, he should resign." Further, Governor Andrew Cuomo says tonight he will ask a local district attorney to commence an immediate investigation and proceed as the facts merit. Joining us now by phone is Jane Mayer, who reported this bombshell piece tonight along with Ronan Farrow in the New Yorker magazine. Jane, thank you very much for joining us. I know this is a very busy night as you're breaking this story.
Well, good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Let me ask you first about that very last thing that I just said. Governor Cuomo is calling for Eric Schneiderman's resignation, also suggesting that some of the behavior that is described in your piece tonight may be criminal and may warrant a criminal investigation by a district attorney in the state of New York. Is that, in terms of your understanding of what's being alleged here, is it possible that the Attorney General could be facing criminal liability for these actions?
Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, I think it is possible, and it's just an incredible turn of affairs since, as of this morning, you had instead the Attorney General of New York, Eric Schneiderman, overseeing an investigation into the same district attorney, Cyrus Vance Jr., in Manhattan. So it is possible. It's a question, I suppose, also of whether the women will want to press charge. And I don't actually know whether that's true or not.
It is Tuesday, the 8th of May of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Well. Eric Schneiderman apparently found out overnight that not everybody can be the governor of Missouri. No, we get rid of our kinky people, and they keep their kinky people and find some sort of excuse, or they just embrace your kink, even if your kink is really harmful to the people around you. Yes, indeed. Well, let that be a lesson to folks. Maybe there's certain types of role playing that people best not endeavor into, because you never know when it's going to come back and bite you in the rear. You never know. I don't know. To be honest with you, maybe I'm just total vanilla, but I never understood the allure of beating someone or getting beaten. Why? I don't know. Now, that's not to say that I've never known people. And you know what's weird? Isn't it weird how powerful people are into the S&M scene? Have you ever noticed that before? It's anecdotal, I know. But I've known some judges and high-powered lawyers and a few politicians, too, who, they're not overt, obviously, but they got some of that S&M thing going on. Sometimes not the perpetuating of it, on the receiving end. And I don't know, maybe it's to balance out how much of an asshole they are in daily life. They have to pay a penance? I don't know. And then I just absolutely never understood the part where in your role playing that you took glee in, perpetuating violence upon another person. Oh, it's okay. It's only role playing. Now, I will admit, I did role play in a very violent drama, and we called that football. And I was told that within, the confines of the field, it's like a stage. It's not real life. I mean, there's things that you can do on this stage, on this football field, that you can't do in real life. And I will say I embraced that role-playing for quite a bit. But people got hurt. And you could get hurt, too. And at some point I was thinking, well, this role-playing maybe isn't... what is it for? So, I don't know. Eric Schneiderman, damn you. And let's not avoid the proverbial gorilla in the room here, okay? Let's not. Because it seems a little too cute by half. In that, Schneiderman is, the leading AG across the nation who has filed more lawsuits against this administration than any other. And there's a hit list. And they're taking glee. When Kellyanne Conway tweets this morning, gotcha. When days before Trump and others were tweeting out or communicating in some fashion, wait until we get dirt on you. Wait until we show the dirt on you. And this is after we find out that Trump and his cronies have been hiring foreign intelligence services to dig up dirt on American citizens. Now, I do not want to apologize for Eric Schneiderman's idiocy, because there's no other way to put it. Oh, and let's be clear. This role-playing dodge, I don't buy it one bit. But I will say, drinking and being an angry drunk might be detrimental to a political career. If you want to blame your indiscretions and your outbursts on role-playing. Oh, it's just a kink. No, it's not. Apparently, Eric Schneiderman is an angry drunk. And I suppose we could discount the allegations if it was just 4 women who came out of the woodwork. Except for the fact that they're 4 women, at least, 2 women are anonymous. But I suspect they're well known, as well as the 2 women who have made themselves public. Which is really sad, because if a woman just comes out of the woodwork, say like, a housekeeper, who might have accused the FIFA president of assaulting her and raping her in a hotel room. I guess we could just discount that for a while. But it's sad because, the woman who comes out of the woodwork and lodges these allegations and are probably true but has no agency. So, politically this is an effing drag. But, I don't know. I guess you make your bed. What's on the rest of the menu today? Because there's so much more news. Well, Trump wants to cut more funds away from kids. That's always nice. He's got that funding bills coming up. And apparently he's going to tell us what he's going to do with the Iran deal. Now, I almost think that he's going to say we'll keep it in place, because Putin is saying that there will be grave repercussions if he backs out of the Iran deal. But it plays to his ignorant base, and this guy only does what's right in front of him, regardless of the ramifications and the repercussions later. Roll with the punches, folks. Roll with the punches. If you roll with too many punches, pretty soon you're punch drunk, and you're not rolling anymore. You're just laying there flat, prone, supine. Well, okay, on the rest of the menu, a woman will interview for an NBA head coaching job for the very first time. That's fabulous. Jeff Sessions is determined to separate children from their parents at the border. Yeah, when families are trying to emigrate, well, without papers, that's called child smuggling now. Jeff Sessions, racist. And Mueller says no to Trump's request for an easy way out. No written questions for you, Donnie Two Scoops. You get to sit down and talk to us direct. After the break, we'll move to the chef's table where a free school lunch might be a favorite conservative punching bag, but it actually means healthier students. And don't expect professors to get fired when they say something you don't like. There is a little thing called academic freedom and tenure. I know people hate tenure, but it's there for a reason. Because sometimes people don't like what professors say. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page there at the bottom is the chat room link, and Kelly Lincoln, our roaring girl, does monitor that quite frequently during the day, so get a hold of us there. To the leftish from the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com are the contribute donate buttons, and thank you for your generosity. We are unable to do this without you. Truly, thank you indeed. Join Netroots, follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. And we're on Facebook too. And if you want to go there, we're there. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. Also, I do put up a diary on Daily Co's with all the show notes and links and other, entertaining tidbits for your perusal. And I am, of course, on Daily Co's as Justice Putnam. All right. So let's start off with this first article by Lindsay Gibbs out of Think Progress. In what would be a watershed moment for the National Basketball Association, the Milwaukee Bucks plan to interview Becky Hammon for its head coaching job. Hammon, six-time, and God, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Hammon? Maybe it's Hammon. A six-time WNBA All-Star, became the first female assistant coach in the NBA when San Antonio Spurs head coach Greg Popovich hired her for his coaching staff in 2014, which we reported here on Netroots Radio when it happened. And I should know how to pronounce her name, shouldn't I? I apologize. Last year, the Bucks interviewed Hammon for their general manager position. Now, ESPN reports that she is among approximately 10 candidates the Bucks plan to interview for head coach. Now, of course, nothing's written in stone here. There's 10 other applicants, and but getting an interview, that's something right there. Well, it doesn't actually, as Lindsay Gibbs here points out, isn't typically counted as breaking through a glass ceiling. However, when the glass ceiling has been as shatterproof as the one for coaching in men's sports, every crack deserves a celebration. Popovich was first drawn to Hammon when he saw the way she commanded the court as a point guard for the WNBA San Antonio Stars. I'd watched the game, and the only thing I could see, it's an exaggeration, but was Becky's aura, her leadership, her effect on teammates, her effect on the crowd, the way she handled herself. And that was Popovich in the New Yorker earlier this year. She was like the ultimate leader, energy, juice, vitality. At the same time, she was doing intelligent things on the court, making decisions that mattered. Hiring Hammond has certainly worked out well for Popovich and the Spurs in 2015. Hammond served as the head coach of the Spurs Summer League team. Under her leadership, the team won that year's Las Vegas Summer League Championship. And while Hammond will always be known as the first female full-time assistant, she's no longer the only one who's an assistant coach in the NBA and a woman. In 2015, the Sacramento Kings hired Nancy Lieberman as an assistant coach, and Lieberman left after one season. According to the Sacramento Bee, she took a self-imposed sabbatical to be with her ailing mother, but she is currently coaching a Big Three basketball league which features retired NBA players. And the Kings in 2017 added former WNBA head coach Jenny Busek to their staff as an assistant, up against 10 other candidates. But this is advancement, a step in the right direction. Next up here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, is an article out of Alternet by Cody Fenwick. Let me just start off by announcing that Jeff Sessions is an unreconstructed, bigot, racist Nazi, and I would gladly be volunteer to help frog march him to Leavenworth when the time comes. F this guy. Attorney General Jeff Sessions offered a full-throated endorsement Monday of separating parents and children when they cross the U.S. and the Mexican border, adding, "If you don't like that, then don't smuggle children over the border." Well, you know what? How about if we separate you from your family and put you in solitary for a while, and I don't know, maybe something worse than waterboarding. We don't expect to get any information out of you. But damn it, it is retribution for grievances that we feel that we have. And we're going to take it out on you, you little whipping boy. Yeah, of course, Sessions spoke at a law enforcement conference in Arizona and warned of the massive influx of illegal aliens across our southwest border. Even though, as Donald Trump himself has pointed out, the number of unauthorized border crossings has fallen sharply in recent years. Sessions said that separating children and parents who cross the border is just an extension of the common practice of separating any other children from their parents during an arrest. Is it true? You mean without due process or hope for that? You mean... we know what he means. The policy ostensibly would not apply, for example, to people who enter the U.S. and apply for asylum through the proper channels, ostensibly. But you know, refugees are actually lower than just the folks coming over illegally. Because if you're a refugee, there's got to be something inherently wrong with you, you loser. If you're on the move because someone's been, taking over vast land masses with superior military power, and you're running away from that, there is definitely something wrong with you, and you need to be made to suffer for a long, long time. Okay, well, the argument about Sessions, it's not going to apply to asylum seekers. Sure. It omits the fact that in crossing the border, families have often done no harm to anyone, which makes separating them seem particularly cruel. These families frequently undergo significant trauma and hardship before making it here, and do so knowing the great risks they face. Sessions is calling this child smuggling, as if there's some sort of sexual connotation to it. They're smuggling children for sex. This guy is sick. And how many times did he lie to Congress about his Russian contacts? Are we still allowing him to make the law? NBC News found that a reported 700 children have been separated from their families while crossing the border since October of 2017. Just, 6 months ago? 7 months? Come on. Sessions has no sympathy for the parents who knowingly violate American immigration law. The policy can further stress and traumatize the children who come across the border through no fault of their own. But you know what Sessions says? Suffer the little children and make them suffer greatly. Up here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, is an offering by Allison R. Parker out of Share Blue Media. You know, Trump wanted to answer questions from Robert Mueller in writing rather than in person. But Mueller reportedly has refused the request, leaving Trump with no easy way out of an interview. Trump's legal team has been terrified of their lie-prone client sitting down for an interview with special counsel Robert Mueller. Instead, his lawyers had hoped Trump could submit written responses to Mueller's questions in lieu of a face-to-face. Well, it makes no sense, or it makes sense for someone as incapable of telling the truth as Trump is to avoid an in-person interview, but Mueller will not let Trump use his dishonesty as a shield against accountability. CBS News correspondent Paula Reed said yesterday that Trump's newest lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, that's not a lawyer, that's a spokesperson. Come on. Well, he told her Mueller had rejected that request. Well, probably can answer that. So CBS noted that Trump's legal team felt that the format could protect Mr. Trump from the possibility of lying or misleading investigators, which is a criminal offense for those of you out there who voted for him who have no idea what the law is. Oh, you know very well what the law is when there's a black person involved or a brown person. A little kid crossing the border trying to escape famine and war and pestilence. You know exactly how the law applies to them. But woefully ignorant when it comes to the white guy that told you that it's okay to kick the black and brown people as much as you want. Just don't think about how terrible your life is while you're doing it. Okay. Well, Trump's relentless attacks on Mueller and on the investigation have done nothing to dissuade the special counsel from his work. Mueller has instead been busy getting the goods on Trump's potential obstruction of justice. Trump wanted to take the easy way out. Yeah, well, he's a rich boy. He's always taken the easy way out. Well, he was hoping his lawyers could save him from himself, but Mueller is not having it. Giuliani's already disastrous tenure as Trump's whatever he is. Lawyer? Come on. Well, that continues to worsen day by day. If he's the one who will be pairing Trump for an interview, it's no wonder they're all nervous about the outcome. Well, they should. Of course, they do have a new guy, Flood. They're hoping to have some flood insurance. But from what I understand from this guy, he's pretty buttoned down. I don't know. We'll have to figure out how that's going to work. All right, let's get to our break. And, of course, we'll come back and go through weather from around the world. And we'll finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, a boy, his horse, and a lot more. All the screen time that young Charlie Plummer didn't get as the kidnapped victim in All the Money in the World is more than made up for in Lean on Pete, where he's in almost every frame as 15-year-old Charlie, spelled differently from his real name, and whose life is being lived on the margins. His mother is run off, and his dad is basically a social services nightmare, functioning more as a delinquent older brother. One morning while out running near his Portland, Oregon home, Charlie comes across a seedy local racetrack and, needing money, takes a job working for trainer-owner Dell, crustily played by Steve Buscemi, who quickly becomes a surrogate dad. Not that he's any good at it or even tries, but he fills a void, introducing Charlie to the hard side of life with the help of Dell's knocked-around-by-life, literally, female jockey friend Bonnie, played by Chloe Sevigny. Her advice to Charlie is to not get attached to the horses. That's ignored, of course, because attachment is exactly what he's seeking. Fearing for the picture's namesake, Lean on Pete, after Charlie learns the fate of horses who stop winning for Dell, he sets off on a multi-state journey with the animal to find his aunt in Wyoming. Director Andrew Hayes' first U.S. set picture, like his 45 Years and Weekend, is a study in contrasts. Innocence versus growing up, the legendary glorious West versus the reality behind the myth of rugged individualism. An ever-present, if unseen character in this seemingly not political picture is what we'd call the safety net. How is a child alone at the center of this desperation? With a touching script, nuanced direction, and breakout performance from Charlie Plummer, Willie Vlautin's novel Lean on Pete is in good, if not the happiest hands here. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Scientific American podcast editor Steve Mirsky, and here's a short piece from the May 2018 issue of the magazine in the section we call Advances, Dispatches from the Frontiers of Science, Technology, and Medicine. Watchful Plants by Erica Tennenhouse. Plants cannot run or hide, so they need other strategies to avoid being eaten. Some curl up their leaves. Others churn out chemicals to make themselves taste bad if they sense animals drooling on them, chewing them up, or laying eggs on them, all surefire signals of an attack. New research now shows that some flora can detect an herbivorous animal well before it launches an assault, letting a plant mount a preemptive defense that even works against other pest species. Snail slime is the lubricating mucus the animals ooze as they slide along. When ecologist John Orrick of the University of Wisconsin-Madison squirted snail slime into soil, nearby tomato plants appeared to notice. They increased their levels of an enzyme called lipoxygenase, which is known to detect herbivores. Orrick says none of the plants were ever actually attacked. We just gave them cues that suggested an attack was coming, and that was enough to trigger big changes in their chemistry. Initially, Orrick found this defense worked against snails. In the latest study, his team measured the slimy warning's impact on another potential threat. The investigators found that hungry caterpillars, which usually gorge on tomato leaves, had no appetite for them after the plants were exposed to snail slime and activated their chemical resistance. This non-specific defense may be a strategy that gets the plants more bang for their buck by further improving their overall odds of survival, says Orrick. He reported the results with his colleagues in the journal Ecologia. The finding that a snail's approach can trigger a plant response that affects a different animal intrigued Richard Carbon, a plant communications expert at the University of California, Davis. Carbon was not involved in the study, but he said it is significant that the plants are responding before being damaged and that these cues are having such far-ranging effects. Carbon wonders how the tomato plants detected chemicals in snail slime that never actually touched them. Says Oric, that's the million-dollar question. He hopes future research will tease out the mechanisms that enable plants to perceive these relatively distant cues. That was Watchful Plants by Erica Tenenhouse.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour report recorded on Tuesday, May 8th, 2018. I'm Mark Belanger. Transport workers around the world are being challenged by dramatic changes in technology such as automated trucks and new work patterns created by companies like Uber. Perhaps the most significant challenges are being felt by transport workers in Africa. That is why the International Transport Workers Federation recently held a conference in Nigeria for its African members. The ITF represents almost 20 million transport workers in 147 countries. Here is a report prepared by the ITF during the conference in Abuja.
Since July 2016, the Women Transport Workers Departments have held conferences with the National Union of Road Transport Workers Nigeria as their hosts.
My name is Juliana Chasim Panduji. I am Baker Kandakti. I'm
Stixinga Mueller.
Cynthia Bridget Wanyonyi.
Through this capacity building conference, the transport workers of Africa can make their voices heard.
Stephen Cotton is the General Secretary of the ITF.
It's a brilliant opportunity to share ideas, talk about campaigning, communications, talk about ways to build union power that will deliver a brighter future for the men and women of Africa.
Baker Kundakchi is the ITF's Global Youth Coordinator.
We know that young workers are the majority in terms of precariousness, precarious jobs. One of the biggest challenges they have right now is unemployment.
Here are some of the other unionists who attended the Transport Workers Conference in Nigeria.
Organized labor is declining. Precarious employment is on the rise. We've got really to work hard in dealing with us.
We are fighting very hard. Women to be empowered.
I would like to see that the number of women increase, the unions will become very strong. And that's what I expected in my union.
The number of jobs that are being created in Africa cannot sustain the demand for employment. So it's a high time that we change the wave. We start focusing on informal sector. And the unions to be part, the workers to be part, the women to be part of forming these legislations, because they are the ones who are going to drive these machines. They are the ones who are going to be involved practically.
I want Congress to help us address this automation and then this digitization.
So from the Congress, we would like a resolution that they work with the government, with the unions. All parties, all stakeholders should be involved in the entire processes. Then I think we will be successful.
I think Singapore will have to punish governments that have got serious disrespect for worker rights.
This Congress was the best, and it's the best ever.
Everybody had a lot of fun. So I really appreciate the many things that I've gathered from the conference. Thank you very much.
We are ITF!
The ITF is based in London with offices in 8 cities around the world. Leading the organization is the ITF's General Secretary, Stephen Cotton.
My history is I've been in the ITF for 25 years, and when I started to understand the work that the ITF did, the voice of the individual working as a collective gives you immense power, but it also gives you a level of personal satisfaction, because if you can do something that helps people but also empowers them and gives them an opportunity to deliver a collective sense of outcome. That was my first experience with the ITF, and it's all about creating an opportunity for individuals to be more powerful together in strong democratic unions. And probably today more than ever, we need the power of unions to help what is a very unfair world. And we are ready to fight to achieve a better outcome for working men and women.
The ITF will be holding its 44th Global Congress in Singapore, October 14th to 20th. And that's it. International labor news you can use. I'm Mark Boulanger. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
From United Nations headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin was inaugurated as Russia's president for the fourth time on Monday in an elaborate ceremony. Putin told supporters and dignitaries gathered at the Grand Kremlin Palace that Russia's future increasingly hinges on the country's youth, whom he hoped could achieve an economic and technological breakthrough. He'll need all the help he can get. Russia's population of just under 150 million people has held steady since the mid-1980s, and that population is now showing signs of shrinking. Demographers studying that phenomenon increasingly equate continual drops in the Russian birth rate with harsh Western sanctions on the country that have lowered the quality of life. In one of the few policy details in his inaugural speech, if it can even be called a detail, Putin said he wants to see more Russian babies.
We will pay special attention to supporting traditional family values, maternity, supporting children. We want Russia to have as many talented and healthy children as possible.
State television repeatedly cut away to show the faces of young people smiling along approvingly to Putin's remarks, but Putin's standing among Russia's youth is in doubt. More than 1,000 people were arrested over the weekend in demonstrations spanning at least 100 Russian cities. Among those arrested for protesting Putin's inauguration was Alexei Navalny, perhaps Putin's most vocal critic. In Moscow, police not only forcefully dispersed demonstrators, but stood by as armed pro-Kremlin fighters donning Cossack military garb beat protesters in broad daylight. Those same Cossack groups have been contracted to provide security at the FIFA World Cup, which kicks off in cities across Russia next month. Luke Vargas, the United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays is our daily special, as well it should be. Well, you know how it works. Okay, so we always like to begin here at the chef's table with weather from around the world, and we always like to begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America. It is currently 51 degrees. We are slated to be a bit cooler than yesterday. We're only going to be 80. Okay, only 80. Too bad. A low of about 55. Tonight is what we're slated, and then we will drop temperature precipitously tomorrow to 72, 75. Small chance of precipitation at 20%. We are in thunderstorm season, so we could get something. You never know. It likes to agitate it up, get a little static electricity going on in the air, and sometimes rain clouds accompany it. But we'll see. And right now, winds are out of the northeast. Well, this is how you get the hot and cold mixed up together. Around 3 miles per hour. It will be shifting out of the west-northwest up to 10 to 15 miles per hour later this morning, and continuing out of the west-northwest throughout the day. And then tomorrow will be out of the west at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Okay, grass pollen is high if you're susceptible to that. The air quality index is good at 29 parts per million. That's right at the cusp of being moderate. So take care if you are in the area. And the UV index is very high at 8. 8 rads. I'll call that 8 rads. Somebody will be correcting me, I hope. And you can do that in any sorts of ways. I'll get the message. Okay, 8. Well, still wearing a hat. I'm not putting the zinc oxide on, but maybe I should. But I do wear sunscreen, so I am taking care. And always have. Lucky me. All right, pressure. We're under high pressure, and it is at 29.99 inches and rising. Visibility is at 10 miles. And humidity is at 86%. Okay, well, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these personal purchased weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. The guy just outside of London proper is registering 78 degrees and fair. Yeah, that could be nice in London. I like Paris. It's 82 and sunny. As long as it's not humid, but it's a little early for the humidity. Don't be in Paris in August. Trust me. Rome is 68 degrees with heavy rain and a flooding advisory and heavy rain advisory that may disrupt infrastructure. Kiev is 81 and fair. Kabul is 71 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong, 74 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 53 and rain, and they have a gale warning, by the way. So don't go sailing in the rain outside of Tokyo. Sydney, Australia is 61 and fair. San Francisco, California is 52 and partly cloudy. And New York is 65 degrees and springtime sunny in New York. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these personal purchased weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. First offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by Rebecca Intralgo out of Think Progress. You know the old adage, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Well, maybe the labeling of school lunches provided for kids is being mislabeled as a free school lunch. Because it's certainly become what's known as a kicking bag. Free school lunch, there's no such thing as a free lunch. But that the Republicans love to just like, the zombies that they are. A child, maybe a poor child, maybe a child of color is getting a free lunch. They just mindlessly start gnawing. As if they're chewing some sort of spectral meat. And so they come after the little kids. I mean, why? It explains why Jeff Sessions has no problem separating kids from their parents. Well, if you didn't want your kids separated from you and auctioned off to the highest bidder, you shouldn't have come here. Stop smuggling kids. If you stop smuggling kids, we won't be able to take them away and auction them off to the highest bidder. You know who else separated kids from their families and who they were taught by? Yeah, you're right. Chile, El Salvador, etc., etc. Argentina, another big one. And then those kids would be like adopted into the aristocracy, the military families or whatnot. Yep, parents disappeared, kids are auctioned off to the highest bidder. And they call it child trafficking when a parent brings their family with them. Unbelievable. So let's keep little kids from eating a lunch. Though we know that lunches, as well as breakfast, I think that there should be a breakfast program too, and there used to be. And maybe in many schools there are. Oh, yeah, the white ones do. But every public school should have them. I know my Catholic school did when I went to Catholic school. We had a breakfast program and we had a lunch program. And everybody paid for it. So there's no such thing as a free school lunch. The parents are still paying for it. Yeah, it's the cost of living in civilization. I know we pool our money and pay for everything. There's no such thing as a free lunch. The kids aren't getting a free lunch. Their parents paid for it. In Catholic school, we had to pay a fee, but there were a lot of parents that paid that fee. Sort of like how you pay taxes, except there's more parents. You get my gist. Or my drift. You get my drift. Yeah. So, Georgetown State University study provides insight into the health effects of free lunch programs. The study examines the impact of federal community eligibility provision, a policy initiative first promoted by two Obama-era cabinet secretaries in 2015 that had a new approach to free lunch in schools. Just give it to every child for free, no family paperwork required. The fate of free and reduced lunch programs has been in jeopardy ever since Trump was inaugurated, and yes, he did say this morning, I'm cutting the food from the little kids. I mean, this libertine hedonist, give me a break. Trump's Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue has hinted in the past that he may roll back some of former First Lady Michelle Obama's healthy lunch initiatives because the President of the United States now has a Big Mac, fries, and a Diet Coke. And, he needs something to wash down the Propecia. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos also reiterated the popular joke at CPAC that there is no such thing as a free lunch. Make the little children suffer. Suffer the little children, and suffer greatly they will. Over and over, make them suffer. Well, state researchers at Georgia State primarily focused on research showed that the implementation of district-wide free lunch correlated with lower body mass indexes in children and increased the share of students in a healthy weight range by 1 percentage point. Well, this obesity fake news is fake news, People aren't gaining more weight. The world is just getting smaller. People seem like they're bigger. Jesus. Well, the research is likely the first to suggest that free lunch programs actually make students healthier. Other studies have shown free school lunch can result in higher academic performance because the brain is working. When I was a jock, we used to eat carbs, the night before a big event, that was taxing, like a marathon, say. You loaded up on carbs. Now, I know some people might say, well, that's not how it's done anymore. But, you look at how the engine processes the fuel and when it can process it, and when the effects of that processing of the fuel will take effect. So you time it. You got to time these things. High sugar things like oranges or bananas work a lot faster than a pasta dinner. Jeez. So, their brains are going to work a bit better when they got food in their bodies, and proteins have allowed these connections in their synaptical regions of the brain to connect. I know. I'm only a layman. I only know what I read. Republicans in Congress just last year pushed a bill that would have stopped public schools from offering free lunch to all students because that's just a little too socialistic now, isn't it? If we're all healthy, it must be a liberal plot to destroy America as we know it.
Danser maintenant sous l'été, les pieds nus dans le sable. Dansez maintenant et jetez vos ennuis dans les vagues qui dansent
Okay, finishing up here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, is an article by Frank Lamont, the director of the Breckner Center for Freedom of Information at the University of Florida, and David Jaden, law clerk. And this was an article originally published in The Conversation, because that's you can only get this news from foreign papers. Isn't it weird? A college professor lashes out on social media with a caustic political opinion. Online commentators explode with outrage and demand firings. Does the university stand behind the instructor and accept a reputational beating? It depends both on the law and the fortitude of campus administrators. Fresno State University's Rhonda Gerard is the latest to incite condemnation with her stream of celebratory Twitter posts marking the April 17 passing of Barbara Bush. Gerard denounced the former First Lady as a witch and an amazing racist. Well, Barbara Bush did say that the people that were drowning in New Orleans were doing pretty good. For good measure, the English professor taunted her critics by boasting that tenure protected her from being fired. Well, it can, and sometimes it won't. Gerard's situation is not uncommon. Professors from Kansas to Connecticut have provoked online outcry with incendiary posts about touchy social or political topics. What is noteworthy is that Gerard has toughed out the criticism and remained on the job. Social media firestorms often end professors' careers. Last year, a Drexel University political scientist resigned after a flippant tweet that stated all he wanted for Christmas was white genocide. Wow. The tweet followed other comments in which the professor expressed disgust with the military and called white people inhuman for mistreating minorities. Well, I think if white people are mistreating minorities, they might be, I wouldn't call them actually subhuman. Well, it is well established by decades of case law that the First Amendment prevents government agencies, including states that run many universities and community colleges, from restricting the content of citizens' speech or punishing them after the fact for what they say. When a private employer, including a private college, fires someone over a social media post, there is no constitutional violation. No wonder they want to get rid of state and public education. Okay. So, outside of higher education, it's become common to see public employees fired for caustic social media posts. Teachers, principals, police officers, and firefighters have all lost their jobs for thoughtless excesses, whether real or perceived, on Facebook or Twitter. Even for employees of state or local government, legal challenges often fail. Employers can prevail by producing enough complaints to show that the speech upset workplace morale or undermined public trust. Interesting. Okay, so social media speech is easily avoided, and remarks like Gerard's quickly dissipate if ignored. If the marketplace greets the next professional online rant with a yawn and a click of the unfollow button, then the message will fail to find an audience and the market will have spoken. Yes, ideas are marketable, you know. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but we will be back here tomorrow for, well, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. That's what we do here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Stay tuned to Netroots Radio throughout the day for breaking news as it's breaking. And, of course, there's breaking news while I was in my little bubble doing this for you, so we'll speak about that tomorrow as well. But do stay tuned for all of that breaking news on Netroots Radio. And we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.